What's up, guys? Welcome back. So I want to pick up from where I left off last time with the race of life. This week I want to talk about lightening up the load. Last week I talked about how I don't really like to run that much. I kind of meant it as a joke, but I was also serious. I don't like to run too far. But something I really don't like doing is I don't like running with a weighted vest because that really makes it difficult almost for no reason. Now, if you're in the military, like my brothers, they run miles and miles and miles with weighted vests. That's because they have to do that and it trains them. But if you're not training, don't run with weights on your back. It just makes it difficult and it makes it unnecessarily hard and it's just ridiculous almost. Now, I say that almost humorously, but it's kind of like that for the human race that we talked about, this race of life that God puts us in. Is that God will give us the endurance. We talked about this, that He will give us the endurance. He will give us the ability to run the race as well as we possibly can. We don't have to build it up because He's built it in. But how many of us really understand that the greatest enemy out there sometimes is the enemy that's in me, right? The fact that I self-sabotage myself a lot. I put weights on my own back. It's like I'm running a race and then I just put a weighted vest on for no reason in life. So we'll talk about what these weights really look like that we sometimes put on ourselves for no reason. And then we'll also talk about sin that can weigh us down as well. Here's the good news, though, is that we can change. If you're in middle school, if you're in high school, college, you can change. I promise you that because I've seen a lot of change in my own life. And I have a lot more room to grow personally, but I believe in the process. I'm going to give you 4 steps here. I believe in this process so much. I've applied it to my own life, and it really does work, that the Lord can change and transform us if we really work at it. So first, we're going to go to our passage in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. It says there this: Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. So again, we're going to talk about lightening the load here. But first, let's talk about what weight is and let's talk about what sin is. Weight are the things that hold us down, the things that keep us from running the race of life well and running this human race effectively. So they're things that distract us, or things like watching too much TV. That's my weight. Or not getting enough sleep, or hanging out with the wrong people too much. Things that are not necessarily sins and not necessarily bad things, but for you, they can keep you from spending more time with God or keep you from running this race very effectively. So we're going to talk about that. But on the other hand, we have sin. And sin are things that directly oppose the glory of God. So we all have fallen short of the glory of God, right? They're things like anger or lust or jealousy or pride, gossip, things that keep us from running the race well because they directly oppose the law of God and God's glory. Again, here's the good news. We can get rid of it. We can change. I guarantee it. Why? Because the passage tells us to lay it aside. The passage says, lay aside these things. I often feel like, I can't get rid of this, or it's just who I am. And this struggle is just so in me that I cannot let it go. But we can get rid of it and we can change. And especially the younger you are, you can definitely change because that's just the way God has built us. The younger we are is the better opportunity to seize it and change now. It gets real hard as you get a little older in life to change something that's a habit that's already in you. So now is the time to take advantage of this process and step into this change and transformation God is asking us to go through. So here's the first thing in this process. First, we have to acknowledge it exists. We have to acknowledge that it exists. We have to be proactive to know that we have a sin problem or we have a weight problem, right? Not like a weight problem, but an actual bad weight problem. We have to go after those things and say, look, I have this. It's a struggle. And why is that hard to do that? Because nobody wants to hear bad. Nobody wants to hear that they are bad or that they are something that they can work on. Nobody wants to hear that. We want to hear that we're amazing. We want to hear we're beautiful, we're awesome, we're just the best thing out there. That's what we want to hear. And there's nothing wrong with hearing that we are good. I believe that you should hear a lot more positive than negative personally, but we can't run from the negative. We can't run from the bad. We can't ignore it. If we're not good at students and we're just getting D's and F's, we can't just be like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good with school. No, like you've got to know that that's a bit of an issue. If we're just mean, we can't just be like, no, I'm nice. It's just that person that I'm mean to. No, that's an issue. If we're gossiping, it can't just be like, oh, no, it's all good. Like, I didn't mean it like that. No, that's an issue. We have to know that for ourselves. Nobody can just tell us that. We have to acknowledge it for ourselves. Now, that's difficult to do. I understand that. It's very hard to acknowledge that I can work on something. Very, very difficult. But take even, say, volleyball, for example. If I want to get better at that, I've got to acknowledge that there's an area I can get better at. If I'm not world class, then there's something I can get better at, right? So acknowledge that there's something you can get better at in life. That's the first step to actually seeing this change and transformation and lightening the load that is on us. Second one is this. I have to admit it to others. I have to admit it to others. So there's this real good saying out there that says, confession is good for the soul. What does it mean? It means that there's a peace that comes when we're able to admit sin. There's a peace that comes with it. Because when we carry sin, it causes stress. It just does. I remember when I was a little kid, my parents, they would always lock up the pantry. And they would tell us we were eating too much. And I was just like, look, I got way too hungry. And so I somehow figured out how to unlock the thing. And then I went in and got the chips and ate it. And I was like, man, that was good. That felt good. But it really stressed me out. It caused a lot of anxiety because I just thought in my mind, man, my parents have to know I did that. And people are looking at me and they're judging me. They just know. Because sin causes stress in our lives. It makes us feel like everybody's judging us and everybody's doing this. And it makes us feel really weird about things. But when we can admit the sin, when I went and told my parents, hey, I did this, felt a lot better. I wasn't judged and beat down by my parents. I might have got me a little swat, but they still loved me. And the fact that they said, look, it's okay. And that right there gave me a lot of freedom. So that's what admitting it will do for us. It will relieve the stress. It will relieve the anxiety and help us to walk in the freedom that God has always called us to walk into. So here's the third thing. And I love this. This is when it gets real good. We need to ask God to remove it. Ask God to remove it. God has the power to remove sin in your life. He does. He has the power to remove and change habits and remove weights in your life. God has that power. He has that strength. He has the ability. He's created all things. In 7 days, he created the earth. He changed and transformed us from sinner to saint. God can do amazing things. He can cause miracles. He opened the eyes of the blind. He opened the ears of the deaf. God can change things. And the sin in your life, there's no different. God can remove it. He can remove it. And I say this firsthand because I've seen him remove a significant amount of sin in my life. God can do that. But not only can he do it, he wants to do it. He really wants to do it. It's why he died. It's why he died. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, I thought he died to keep us from going to hell. That's true. God died to keep us from going to hell, but he also died to keep hell from being a part of our lives here now on earth. And so what that means is if we're living in sin and having all these weights on us, it can be hell. It can separate us from God. It can keep us away from the relationship that he designed us to have. So he died to keep us from hell, but he also died to keep hell out of us and keep hell away from us by getting rid of our sin. Watch this in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 24. It says, he himself bore our sins in his body on the tree, that we might die to sin and live to righteousness. So Jesus went to the cross with our sin, and he killed the sin. He got rid of the sin. He got rid of the weight. He got rid of the things that we deal with. He got rid of that anger, that jealousy, that hatred. He took it, killed it, got rid of it. Now he says, I want you to get it off of you. I want you to get rid of it. I want you to lighten the load because I lightened it for you. I've already killed it. So Jesus wants us to live in freedom. He wants us to live in happiness and joy. But when we carry sin, it keeps us from that. So now we know it's His will to get rid of the sin in our lives. That should give us some encouragement to ask Him to get rid of it.